What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So tomorrow, at long last, Pokemon Legends Arceus will release, but yesterday we had reviews go live after the embargo lifted, and it seemed to surprise a bunch of people online with the review scores. We're gonna go over that one here today. Also, we're gonna be talking about a big sales milestone for the Switch as it continues to pass legendary system after legendary system, and we're also gonna be talking about Microsoft's sales numbers that they released, showing why something like buying Activision was business as usual. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with the Steam Deck. We know it will be shipping out starting next month towards the end of February. And we have an update, especially if you were someone who got a reservation in, you're going to want to pay attention because there is an email you might accidentally miss and then it could go to the next person in line. We'll head over here. This was over on Valve's website where they say Steam Deck launching February 25th. They say on February 25th, we will be sending out the first batch of order emails to reservation holders. Customers will have 3 days, so 72 hours, from receipt of their order email to make their purchase before their reservation is released to the next person in the queue. The first units will be on their way to customers starting the 28th, and we plan to release new order email batches on a weekly cadence. They even gave us exact times just about when those emails will be going out to inboxes, so pay attention here. Start sending out invites shortly after 10 a.m. Pacific time on February 25th. I just want to stress that since if you miss it, well, you might go to like the back of the line or something, and we know the back of the line is in like 2023 or something with the popularity of the Steam Deck and the way they're, of course, handling these orders being first come, first served through reservations online. But I'm excited for the Steam Deck, hoping to get it sooner rather than later so we can take a look at it here on the channel. They did mention they're going to be sending out review copies or review systems to different publications, so I guess we'll be looking out for reviews as well. Just keep an eye out for that email. Also, I have some good news for Crysis fans, as it looks like a new game in the series is in development. We can see this posted up over on Crytek's website, saying it's something you've been asking for a long time, so it's now finally time to confirm, yes, the next Crysis game is happening. We are so pleased and excited to bring this news to you, and we really can't wait to reveal more details about what lies ahead. Right now, the game is in the early stages of development, so it'll be a while yet, but we wanted to bring you the news at this time as we are so hyped for the future and to let you know that we will be listening to our community. Of course, we've seen Crysis remasters release and all this, kind of setting up Crysis for it. We figured it was going to happen. It sounds like it's going to be a while, years and years before it releases, which, hey, hopefully by then the video card market is figured out, because Crysis would always be that release that would stress video cards and be like the benchmark for that new card you just picked up. So here's hoping that, I don't know, 3 or 4 years from now, we can get video cards for at least close to their retail price. Or who knows, maybe something crazy happens and you can walk into a store and actually buy it. Oh, and from time to time, Microsoft will release engagement numbers, I guess that's the way you could put it, for some of their games. Like Forza Horizon 5 had like day-by-day updates around how many people had signed in and tried out the latest Forza game. Well, it looks like we have a pretty large number here now for Halo Infinite. We can see this posted up over on Twitter from the Halo account, which seemed to coincide with Satya Nadella announcing this during a conference call from Microsoft, saying with over 20 million Spartans joining us so far, we're thrilled to announce that Halo Infinite is the biggest launch in Halo franchise history. Thank you everyone for joining us on the next step in this great journey. And yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the game itself going free to play for the multiplayer, which is where the majority of the action happens. I thought the campaign was fun, but most people typically will even just bypass the campaign and go right to the multiplayer. And it being free to play, I'm sure plenty of people jumped in, decided if they liked the game or not, either stuck with it or just tuned out completely. Concurrent player count for Halo Infinite has been declining over time, and a lot of that has to do with lack of content or big updates. I think when we finally get to the next season and hopefully they have a new battle pass with new levels, modes, and who knows, maybe something for campaign like, I don't know, co-op, and then we have Forge mode, I feel like they would have a pretty good spike in their concurrent player count, but at least to get things started, this was pretty good. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Pokemon Legends Arceus, releasing tomorrow on the Switch. I'm excited to pick it up. I thought it'd be fun maybe to do a video where we just kind of jump into the game and I give my first thoughts and impressions as I'm experiencing it for the first time. So let me know if you'd like to see that maybe over the weekend. But reviews did land yesterday, and it seemed to catch some people off guard. I think based on the way the game was looking, people were expecting the reviews to be middling to not very good. But take a look at this over on Metacritic, currently sitting at an 86. That's with 41 critic reviews. There are plenty that are still pending, so I mean, this could technically go up like 87 or 88, but it could also fall into like the lower 80s. But if we look at the current split, 38 positive, 3 mixed, and there were some perfect scores kind of getting thrown around here. I mean, I saw VGC give it 5 stars, but if we just kind of take a quick look just down the list that they have here over on Metacritic under critic reviews, Telegraph with 100, we have CG Magazine with a 90, Hobby Console is at 87, Vandal at 84, and you go to the other end of the spectrum, and IGN Italy gave it a 50, which was certainly out there compared to some of the other reviews. And sitting at an 86 puts this game in pretty good company when you look at the Pokemon series overall, with the best rated right now being Pokemon Y at an 88, and then you see a ton of them in the 87 range, and you get down to the first Pokemon Switch title when you go from best rated to worst rated, and Pokemon Legends Arceus is currently the first one that shows up with an 86. I mean, Sword and Shield were coming in at 80, so yeah, it looks like that new direction for the Pokemon Company and Game Freak is at least paying off right now. The next big thing obviously is going to be sales, but if you look at a lot of the reviews, that's what people are excited about, is kind of the foundation that's being outlined here for what could be a series going forward in the Pokemon franchise. And that's the biggest part here. I mean, people say it's their Breath of the Wild moment. Look, they weren't really trying to hide it. If you look at the cover art, they compare it to the Zelda Breath of the Wild cover art, it's very similar, right? It's trying to show this big landscape, kind of looking out into it like, here's this new adventure you're about to jump into. The biggest but when it came to a lot of these reviews were the visuals. And to be honest, looking forward to a potential future for a line of Legends series like this, where it's all about adventuring in a large world, that should be something that gets better over time, especially since the next one, I assume now, if it's in like a 3 or 4 year cycle for these Legends games, would be on the next Switch with more powerful hardware that can probably handle better visuals and maybe even larger worlds. Some of these reviews even mention interesting or compelling storylines, like some of the side quests were brought up as being better than the main story itself, whether it's going out capturing different Pokemons for research purposes, or even trying to solve different mysteries as to like this Drifloon that's fortunately causing chaos in a town, I guess, as they are basically grabbing on to different children, which if you think about that, the Drifloon with his Pokedex entry, yeah, that's kind of a problem. You should probably look into that. But I'll be picking up the game tomorrow, trying it out, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a bit on the Spawncast Saturday night, so make sure you tune in there for some of our early initial thoughts. Next up, let's talk about a big sales milestone that has reportedly now been reached by the Switch. We can see this posted up by VG Charts saying Nintendo Switch outsells PS1 worldwide in terms of sales. I want to quickly note, VG Charts is, I mean, they do their best when it comes to estimations, but they are indeed estimations. And what's really funny about VG Charts is they try to get it down to the single unit. I mean, look, for example, the Switch sold 341,662 units for the week ending January 15th, 2021. Is my opinion, they have no way of actually knowing that. I mean, maybe if they said 340,000 units, then try to go all the way down to the single Switch unit, okay, it'd be a little bit more believable, but they do themselves say this is an estimate. So if we look at the PlayStation lifetime sales, it comes in at 102.5 million. The Switch, according to VG Charts estimations, 102.81 million units. Is this something that I believe the Switch is around? Yes. Based on what we're probably going to hear from Nintendo in the next week or two from their investors briefing, I think they're going to tell us that it's either even or just a bit above the Wii, with their report ending December 31st. And I mean, we're almost a month now into the new year. So yeah, I think it could have picked up easily an extra million or so to then pass the PS1. And then as noted here by VG Charts, the Switch is 13.77 million units away from the PlayStation 4 and 15.88 million units away from the Game Boy. That does include like Game Boy Color and all that. In fact, we could take a look over here at just some of the best-selling systems. That does include handheld and home console. The Switch, it's funny, on the chart they label it as hybrid because like even they don't know where exactly to place it here. It has its own category completely, but going above the original PlayStation, yeah, PS4, Game Boy, and then DS and PlayStation 2. In fact, when it does pass the PlayStation 4, it's probably going to be passing the Game Boy like a month or two afterwards. The biggest gap is between the Game Boy and the DS. You're going from 118 million up to 154 million. And yeah, if it does get to the DS, then it'll probably pass the PS2 a month or two later, because that means things got out of control for the Switch and just went on a run in like its 6th and 7th year. And this is a discussion point that's going to come up, I think, at the end of 2022, because I believe the Switch will pass the PlayStation 4 and probably the Game Boy by the end of this year as we head into 2023. And it's going to be, can it actually catch the DS and the PS2? A lot of that's going to come down to how Nintendo approaches the end of this generation, and if they really are going to say goodbye to the Switch by 2024. There's a chance they look around and say, wow, this chip shortage is really hitting things hard. Maybe we will stick with this Switch and just do a revision, as has been rumored basically since the system came out, and we'll check back in 2025 or 2026. Again, it's hard to believe, but I do believe it is possible that could happen, especially if they have a Switch that upscales to 4K and just cleans up how it looks on a larger screen. That's the biggest part there. In handheld mode, most people don't really complain about how the Switch necessarily looks. Maybe how it runs, as frame rate tends to be an issue as well. But if they can cycle out the current Switch, have a newer one come in and still call it part of the Switch family, it's kind of what they did with the Game Boy. They cycled in the Game Boy Color, and that's part of the Game Boy family, and that's one of the reasons it's one of the best-selling game systems of all time. Something to keep an eye on here, however, in a few weeks, we'll know exactly where the Switch stands and if it's been able to pass the Wii by the end of December 31st to wrap up the holiday season from 2021. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft's earnings, specifically though Xbox, but we've talked about the acquisition that is currently ongoing now but for Microsoft and Activision, that being nearly $70 billion. It's mind-blowing how much money that really is when you sit down and think about it, and that's all cash. But if you look at how much money Microsoft makes per quarter, it becomes pretty clear why they were able to just be like, oh yeah, it's fine. We'll just give them all cash. We'll write a check. We can head over here to The Verge. They say Microsoft has posted the second quarter of its 2022 financial results today. Remember, this ended December 31st. Their financial year, or their fiscal year, ends at the end of June. They say reporting revenue of $51.7 billion. Again, this isn't a quarter. Net income, so this will be money that just goes into their bank, $18.8 billion. Yeah, so you kind of think about that and you're like, wow, that's a single quarter. It's the holiday season, and obviously things are a bit busier there when it comes to things like Surface and Xbox and all of that, but still, $18.8 billion comes in, and then you realize, wow, they paid $70 billion for Activision. They'll be able to make that up in like a year without too much issue. Yes, that's why I'm saying it's a long-term play, and they're not necessarily looking to make all of the money back from the Activision acquisition from like Call of Duty in the next year or two, because clearly they don't have any issues when it comes to cash flow. Overall revenue for Microsoft's up 20%, and net income has increased by 21%. A lot of this has to do with things like Windows, Office, cloud services. All of that ended up having a boost from this past quarter. If we move over to the Xbox with the Series X and the Series S, this is the first quarter where they can compare since the start of this current generation. Their hardware revenue is up 4%. That, of course, is based on the demand for these new consoles that they can't seem to keep in stock. Specifically those Series X. I was at Best Buy the other day, and the Series S was just there on the shelf. So the Series X seems to be the one that they're having the hardest time just getting into stores right now. Their overall gaming revenue is up by 8%, and that is after the company set a record $3.6 billion for the quarter in its previous fiscal quarter. So yeah, looking pretty good here for Microsoft. A lot of that with their content and services being increased 10% year over year. And looking at this, while gaming is not the big moneymaker for Microsoft now, it's certainly a play that they are trying to increase as they head towards what they've said, this metaverse-enriched future, whatever that means. And gaming seems to be what they believe anyway as their entry point versus Amazon with shopping, Google with search and Chrome. And those are going to be the big companies they're going to compete against, and they're going to be leveraging their gaming side of things. That's why that Activision acquisition makes so much sense for them, at least right now. We'll see how things shape out there, but at least from what you can see with the revenue, Microsoft not really having a hard time with money, go figure. In our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus for the month of February. This was announced yesterday by Sony over on PlayStation Blog, which, as usual, they put up this nice little card here showing off the different games that will be heading into this service. This will be starting February 1st and will be available until February 28th. It looks like they have UFC 4, that's on the PlayStation 4. They have Assault on Dragon's Keep, that is also on PS4, and then Planet Coaster Console Edition appears to be the big PlayStation 5 game for the month. The other games are specifically PS4 titles. If they have PS5 versions, they won't be part of this service. These are just PS4 games played through backwards compatibility on your PlayStation 5, whereas Planet Coaster will only be available on the PlayStation 5 system. And I gotta say, looking at this, kind of a disappointing month overall. I mean, sure, UFC, if you're a big UFC fan, that's kind of cool to get thrown in there. But like Tiny Tina's, like it's like add-on content for a pretty old game now. Planet Coaster, kind of cool if you like Roller Coaster Tycoon or something, but otherwise you're just thinking, all right, I guess on to March. But February itself is pretty packed right now, and unless there was something really cool in here, I probably would have looked past PlayStation Plus as it is. If anything though, go in there, as usual, claim them, add them to your library. You might as well. It's part of a service that you might already be paying for now. Certainly nothing in here I would say is worth signing up immediately for PlayStation Plus. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to some of the big releases, especially with something like Dying Light 2 coming up, and obviously Horizon Forbidden West towards the end of the month. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, do the Pokemon Legends Arceus reviews coming in at 86 on Metacritic surprise you? 36% said yes, 64% said no. I mean, it is technically one of the best rated Pokemon games. Best rated Pokemon game on the Switch currently, and I saw a lot of people surprised on Twitter about this, and a lot of that came down to the visuals. The graphics don't look very good. They're at least not impressive. I think they're enough to make things work as serviceable, I guess you'd say. They're just not gonna light the world on fire with how incredible the game looks like. Breath of the Wild, that is genuinely incredible on the Switch in handheld mode, but I think people need to come to terms with this. The teams working on Breath of the Wild, way more talented than Game Freak when it comes to 3D, but also building out a world that is extremely detailed to where people are still finding little things in Breath of the Wild to this day. I think for a foundation that they're building right now with Arceus, it's good enough, and well, I'll find out for myself, like I said, starting tomorrow. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Lion saying, from what I have heard, the games industry is currently having an issue with the lack of workers. With games becoming more complex and grander in scale, the amount of manpower required has gone up. Sony has all these untapped IP at their disposal, but unfortunately they don't have the available staff to be able to take on these projects, and creating new studios with brand new staff is a long process. So I do sort of understand the purchase of Activision Blizzard, and because there are talented staff and the established teams already there. The biggest part here is, yes, it is difficult to build a studio from the ground up and find enough developers at like the drop of a hat to create a large game. I mean, if you look at the Initiative, that is a studio that Microsoft was really trying to build up as like this big new like Sony Santa Monica competitor, right? They're gonna put out these massive experiences. And then they probably realized, wow, it's taking a long time to build this up. We need a lot of developers to create something like Perfect Dark in the vision we have. So they went and got Crystal Dynamics. I saw people say, hey, they could have built 20 studios or something with the amount of money they used to get Activision Blizzard. Probably, but it would have taken like 100 years or so. It would have taken a long, long time to do it correctly. And developers, as people seem to think, just don't grow on trees. So Microsoft realized it was a shortcut, yes, but it was one they needed for their subscription service that they need to release games for almost every other month. Having Activision Blizzard just all of a sudden become part of their first-party team would allow them to do that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the reviews currently going around for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Were you surprised when you saw some of the scores, and are you picking up tomorrow? And what about the Switch slowly creeping up the charts for some of the best-selling consoles of all time? Will it be able to catch the DS and maybe even pass the PS2? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.